to one knee. The punch didn't hurt, but it stunned me. And I remember looking over at my coach, and my coach was going like this. And in my mind, I wanted to say, no, I'm not getting up. But I did get up, and I did win the fight. But it was kind of weird, the feeling that you get when you get knocked down. My boxing career started at South Dakota State when I was a senior in high school. It was my brother and I. We was training in the old basement gym of SDSU. And that's how I won my first few fights. I didn't have any training. It was just him and I won my first 3 fights after we trained in that gym. And I realized that I'm pretty good at boxing. Growing up, I was known as the crybaby in the family. And so my little niece would beat me up, and my mom would tell me, the next time she hits you, you grab her fingers and you bend them back. Well, she ends up grabbing my fingers and bending them back. So when I moved to Sioux Falls, I found a person by the name of Joe Taylor, and he was the coach that I got formal training from. I told him that I wanted to be a boxer, and he said he had a story to tell me. So he says, Jerry, there's a type of boxer that when you knock him down, he stays down. I said, Coach, I'm not that type of boxer. He says, Jerry, there's a type of boxer that when you knock him down, he gets back up. You knock him down again, and he stays down. I said, Coach, I'm not that type of boxer. He says, Jerry, there's a type of boxer that when you knock him down, he gets back up. You knock him down again, he gets back up. Every time you knock him down, he gets back up. I was getting ready to tell him that's the type of boxer I was when he interrupted me. He says, Jerry, I'm not looking for that type of boxer either. I'm looking for the boxer who's knocking everybody down. My road to the Olympics was more spiritual than anything. I started boxing in 1981 until 1985. And I was doing it all for the wrong reasons. I was doing it because it was all about me. I was doing it because I wanted to be somebody. I wanted to be rich and famous. And then in 1985, I decided to quit boxing. In 1987, I was jogging on North Marion Road when the Holy Spirit spoke to me to say, get back into boxing. I kept running, and then the Spirit said, get back into boxing. You're going to go far this year. I ran back home, got in my car, and went to see my old coach. Before I can tell him what happened to me, he said, Jerry, you should get back into boxing. You're going to go far this year. I said, that's what I came here to tell you, Coach. So I got back into boxing. I did the bike riding. I did the swimming. I did the running on the track. I did the training where I did a lot of sparring to get ready for my very first fight, and I lost. And I started questioning the Holy Spirit. I started questioning God. And the Holy Spirit at that moment said, keep your eyes on Jesus and box. And that's what I did from that day forward. I made it all the way to the national finals of USA Boxing. I fought the guy that you saw in the video, Anthony Hembrick, a 2-time national champ who was slated for the Olympics. They didn't think anybody would come around and beat that guy, but I was the one who did. And I remember sitting down talking to my coach right before the finals. I thought I had a broken hand, and I didn't think I was going to do the finals. And the Holy Spirit said, keep your eyes on Jesus and box. And that's just what I did, and I knocked him out 1 minute, 45 seconds of the first round. At that time, in order to be in the Olympics, you had to compete in a box-off. Well, all the other weight divisions, they competed in a box-off except for Anthony Hembrick. Well, they attempted to have him do a box-off, but they put him against a guy who he beat several times. They then put him against another guy, and that guy didn't want to fight him. So we was waiting for them to pick me, but they never did. And thankful my attorney, he filed a deal where I got to fly to Olympics and do a box-off with them, but they refused to let us box off. But the upshot of the thing is that he didn't box either. He overslept and missed his opportunity to box. So both of us were there, and neither one of us boxed. He tell people that he was in the Olympics and didn't box. I tell him I was in the Olympics too, and I didn't box. Well, my message to you guys today is figure out your gifts and figure out God's plan for your life, and then pursue that. When God said that I would go far this year, I thought he was talking about the Olympics. Well, 29 years later, I discovered that God's plan is bigger than that. I figured that it wasn't the Olympics that God had planned for me. It was the Hall of Fame, baby, and that's why I'm here. He fulfilled his promise to me. He's a great big God. Now the Holy Spirit has directed me in another direction. I'm called to teach what we call rock-steady boxing. Rock-steady boxing helps people with Parkinson's disease. It's non-contact boxing, and it helps Parkinson's disease people live a more fulfilled and quality of life. So you know that with Parkinson's, you have a tendency to shake a little bit, but through rock-steady boxing, I don't know if you guys know what those speed bags are, but those guys are really good at the speed bag. And it helps to curb the shaking in their hands when they're walking around. So I'm going to be starting a rock-steady boxing program, and if any of you guys know anybody with Parkinson's disease, send them my way. My name is Jerry James, and I'm here to help. Thank you.
Just to clarify, the Jeff he was talking about in the Hall of Fame is not me. And I know there's great support out there from all of you, and I appreciate it. So Jerry, that was you I was passing on the track all those years. I didn't know who it was, and you were slow. In the late spring of 1978, I was announcing a high school basketball game, and the guy to my left was writing a story about that game. He's our next inductee. Well, the story is that as I looked back on our conversation as we left, we were at the arena on the south end up high, and so I signed off. It was a close game. Baltic was playing. They had a chance to go to the state tournament. They hadn't been there. I don't know if they ever had been there, actually, now that I don't remember anything anymore. But, that's age. But what I do remember is as Mel Antonen and I were walking towards the catwalk to go downstairs, and he was going to the locker room, he said to me, "What would you ask Baltic's coach right now if you were going down there?" I made some soft comment, like, "Boy, it must be hard, to be that close and not make it." He said, "No, I'm going to ask him if that was the shot they wanted at the end of the game." Well, I ended up doing some 40 years of announcing football and basketball in South Dakota. He ended up writing for the USA Today. Mel Antonen is our next inductee. Terry Nielsen is his presenter.
Mel Antonen. Mel graduated from Hamlin High School in 1974 and Augustana in 1979. He was a national baseball reporter for the USA Today for 24 years. The Lake Norden native covered numerous history-making accomplishments, including Cal Ripken's Ironman Street, the Mark McGuire Sammy Sosa Home Run Derby, 8 players reaching their 3,000th hit, labor negotiations, and the Players' Strike of 1994, the 1989 Earthquake Series, and the closing of Yankee Stadium, and dozens of other stories on Hall of Famers, including Bob Farrell, Yogi Berra, Stan Musial, and Joe DiMaggio. He also was a contributor to many baseball radio and TV shows. He is a member of the Baseball Writers Association of America and is a Hall of Fame voter. Mel has covered nearly every World Series since 1980. Currently, Antonen writes baseball columns for SI.com and hosts a pregame show on MASN TV, the network that covers the Baltimore Orioles and the Washington Nationals. Mel is also a baseball analyst for Sirius XM Radio.
Yeah, I certainly remember that, Jeff. It's not often reporters get applause, especially nowadays. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for that video, and congratulations to my fellow inductees. It's always fun to be home in South Dakota. I certainly don't get here as much as I'd like. But this night is a once-in-a-lifetime thrill for me, but I have to say that there's a jolt of disbelief that goes with it. Why me? I had moments, but overall, I didn't do anything spectacular as an athlete. I think I'm here because I found a way to have the ballpark's best seat for free to watch baseball games and get paid for it, and then go on vacation. Pinch myself? No, if I do, I might wake up and realize I have to go to school. And even though these days I do radio and TV, as I have for the last 7 years, I still consider myself a newspaper guy. I can't imagine being anything other than a reporter, an ink-stained wretch. I love newspapers and newspaper reporting. I figured in more than 3 decades of covering baseball, I've written stories from some 3,200 big league games. And still, I'm not sure I understand the infield fly rule. But I'm proud to be a Lake Norden Blue Jay, a Hamlin Charger, and an Augustana Viking. The memories of playing and coaching in baseball in South Dakota are stamped into my mind forever. And could there be a better foundation for learning baseball than hang out with my dad, Ray, the baseball nut, at state tournaments every August? I was inspired to love baseball by South Dakota's legendary players and the hardworking volunteers that make baseball run in a small town. It's a classic in South Dakota, and their passion for the sport has stuck with me. Tonight, I'm honored to have my family here, but I didn't realize there was going to be cousins from all over. My cousins from Livermore, California came. If I had known that they were all going to be here, I would have spoken some Finnish. I would have prepared something in Finnish. But I do want to introduce my wife, Lisa Nip, and my 10-year-old son, Emmett, who is missing his Capitol Hill Little League opening day game and celebration to be here tonight. He was supposed to pitch opening day, but that has now moved till Tuesday. Thank you all for your support and understanding and why I'm a little nutty sometimes. Lisa, my wife, is a journalist and a photographer from Nashville. She's worked at the Moscow Times covering former Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev. She flew with Al Gore during his 2000 presidential election for the Nashville Tennessean. And she covered the war as a photographer, the war in Kosovo as a photographer. However, those assignments could not have prepared her for the unpredictable rhythms and life in baseball. It's not an exaggeration to say that covering baseball is difficult on family life because of midnight phone calls, 4-week road trips, and constantly changing travel. I don't even want to count how many last-minute changes Lisa's had to make to deal with my job. A rookie shortstop makes an error in Cleveland, and it affects Lisa's weekend. The most cringeworthy moment came in 2007 when I left for 8 weeks of spring training after Emmett was born. Excuse me, Lisa, 10 days, I know. But Lisa has a way of pushing back. Once when I was scrubbing the porch, Reggie Jackson, the Hall of Fame outfielder, called to help me with a story. And Reggie, as you might expect, can be a little bit insistent and doesn't always take no for an answer. But Lisa wanted it her way. So as I was scrubbing the floor, I heard Lisa say, "Reggie, he'll call you back when he's finished scrubbing the floor." When I called him back, he said, "Mel, you've got quite a wife there." Reggie is certainly right about that. You know, there's so many ways to love baseball. You can love it because of stats. You can love it because of history. You can love it because you love the debate of strategy and DH, which has been going on for decades. But I love baseball because it always brings me home. A baseball park, in my mind, is a home. It doesn't matter if it's next to a cornfield, as it is in Lake Norden, or if it's next to a rumbling subway, as it is in New York. My life reflects the power of baseball. One of my earliest memories of Lake Norden baseball was the summer of 1969. I was 12 years old, In March of that year, my mom died of a year-long battle with cancer. But it was baseball and Lake Norden baseball with hot dogs and a 10-cent glass of pop and chasing batting practice foul balls on a beautiful summer night that created diversion from the fearful images of 3 months prior. My mom's tan casket, crying adults, the hearse in front of Trinity Lutheran on an overcast sub-zero day where there was piles of snow in one of South Dakota's worst winters. That summer, my dad was in charge of getting Memorial Park ready for the games and, believe it or not, promoting it. On those quiet summer mornings, my dad and I would get up and set up the sandwich sign that reads, "Baseball tonight, 8 p.m. versus Flandreau," in the middle of an intersection right near Holger's grocery store. Then we'd go to the baseball field to drag and chop weeds and mark the lines for that night's game. At that game, I hung in numbers on inning by inning on the scoreboard in right field. And the next morning, I would call the Watertown Public Opinion, Ron Lenz, who's here tonight, and the Argus leader, Bruce Conley, who's also here tonight, to report the results of the game. That afternoon, as the papers were being delivered, I'd be filled with anticipation to read my reported stories. That started me on a lifetime of loving baseball journalism and loving newspapers. One thing led to another. I wrote feature stories for the Public Opinion in high school for 15 cents an inch. During my Augie days, I covered sports at the Argus Leader. After graduation, I was a farm and political reporter. Then USAT Baseball, CNN, ESPN, MASN, XM, and sometimes SI.com. And so you gotta ask, where would my career be without acronyms? And now I'm here. I have a million stories. My career has gone so fast, I'm not even sure what has happened and what hasn't. Did it really happen that I walked in Fenway Park at left field with Joe DiMaggio one day? During the playoffs one year, did I really go from Yankee Stadium on Saturday to the Oakland Coliseum on Sunday and back to Yankee Stadium on Monday? Did I really eulogize Calvin Griffith, the former Twins owner, at his Washington, D.C. funeral? And did I really visit with Harmon Killebrew was I the last reporter to